It was an infamous surprise attack, the first shot in a deadly conflict between the Federation and a powerful enemy. But aside from a single mention by Captain Picard in a classic episode from over 30 years ago, we've never heard another word about it. Could Star Trek United finally explore a long-lost piece of Federation history, and in the spirit of Star Wars Andor, turn a forgotten chapter into something truly epic? Let's find out. Well, hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Well, last week I did an interview with Mike Sussman talking all about his new Star Trek United concept, bringing back Scott Bakula as Jonathan Archer in a brand new Star Trek series, which clearly you guys love the idea of this because we've had so many positive comments about the series. It's clearly an idea everybody likes. During the course of the interview, Mike and I chatted for over an hour, and during the context of some questions and everything, maybe you rephrase things a different way or ask things again, or you need to redo a question because your dog barks. But it was interesting. I was going through some of the footage from the interview, wondering if there's anything else we could talk about regarding Star Trek United, because it's obviously such a hot topic at the moment. And there was a question that we ended up redoing. But the interesting thing was there was a word that he mentioned in the context of an answer that we didn't end up going back to, but it struck me as being quite an interesting word when we're talking about the whole Babel Federation headquarters and everything, and how that would be defended and whatnot. And we ended up redoing the question for technical reasons. Wouldn't it be a bit dangerous, Babel being so isolated out on the fringes of the galaxy?
Sure, but it would be protected. Babel would be protected by this network of space stations, orbital defense platforms. These
of course,
Salem
like DS9 had. They had a whole defense grid and stuff they upgraded in season. I'm so sorry. I got my sorry. There's my dog. Let me just put him out. But at the time, there was a word that kind of got a bit lost.
Orbital defense platforms, these Salem stations.
And that was the word Salem. And Mike had already said that, you know, the whole colony was defended by a network of defense stations. I thought, so what's this Salem? So I thought I'll put this into memory alpha and see what it brings back in terms of refreshing my Star Trek memory. And it brought back a historical event in the history of Star Trek that we've heard about before, but never seen. And this was going back to a very old episode from Star Trek The Next Generation in season 3. Called The Enemy. This was the episode where Judy got marooned on a planet with the Centurion Bokra. They had to work together to escape the planet. Meanwhile, there was a dying Romulan on board the Enterprise, and there was an intergalactic incident about to happen with Tomahawk and a Romulan warbird. It was a really exciting and very interesting episode. Picard made a reference, and this is what the reference was.
I think it demands a response from us.
But we must measure our response carefully, or history may remember Galland and Kor along with Pearl Harbor and Station Salem 1 as the stage for a bloody preamble to war.
So Station Salem 1 was obviously a catastrophic attack on the Federation in some capacity that was akin to a Pearl Harbor style attack, you know, using these two historical references in the same sentence. And Mike mentioned in an earlier part of the interview that he found it interesting that obviously during the TOS and beyond era, the Federation headquarters were going to be situated on Earth, but in this particular timeline, obviously they weren't located on Earth, but why would they be moved from their original location to Earth?
You know, if the show gets on the air and runs a couple of years, your final season could be about why it is no longer the capital or the headquarters in the future years, and sort of like tie that bow. And I have some interesting ideas along those lines.
And the most obvious reason is a catastrophic attack on the Federation. Station Salem 1 is part of these defense stations that are located around Babel. Being the Federation headquarters, it would need to be guarded and well defended, a bit like how DS9 was quite well defended and had a lot of armaments and everything because it was literally out there, right outside the wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, and needed a good defense grid. Well, Babel would be no different. It would require a network of stations that would surround it to protect it. So who is behind this devastating sneak attack on the Federation? Well, there's one race we know it isn't, the Romulans. In the TOS episode Balance of Terror, we learned that the peace treaty ending the Romulan War held for about a century, until that particular episode when a single bird of prey crossed the neutral zone and destroyed several outposts along the border. So if it wasn't the Romulans, who attacked Babel and the Salem stations? The Klingons? The Cruzen Patriarchy, first mentioned in the animated series? What about the never-before-seen Zenkethi coalition from Deep Space Nine? Or maybe someone else entirely? For now, Mike isn't saying. Even if United makes it to air, we might have to wait a few seasons to find out. What we do know is this. There was or will be a Pearl Harbor-style attack on Station Salem 1, possibly destroying it and the other Salem stations. And that attack is ultimately why the Federation headquarters will one day move from the planetoid Babel to Earth. I reached out to Mike to see, is this in fact the case? And he, after a bit of a long pause to, I guess, think about it, yes, he did confirm it. That is the actual case. So with a bit of digging and a bit of research, it seems like, yes, Station Salem 1 as referenced in not only The Enemy, but also other Star Trek episodes. I think it was referenced in the TNG episodes, Yesterday's Enterprise, and it was also referenced in the episode Family. It was in the original script. I dug up some original copies of some past Star Trek scripts from around the third season of the show, and it seems like the Salem stations were referenced on multiple occasions as a disastrous incident in Federation history. In the context of Family, when Wesley was talking to the holographic image of his father Jack Crusher in the holodeck, he mentioned that a descendant of the Crushers was killed in the Salem station attacks. Jack says, "We've had a skeleton or two in our closet. Someday I'll tell you about the Crusher who was a horse thief on Nimbus 3. But we also had our share of family heroes, a Crusher who fought for the Confederacy at Bull Run. One died at Station Salem 1. It's a proud heritage, Wesley, one for you to pass on to your children." It was referenced in Yesterday's Enterprise as a historical event when Picard was talking to Guinan.
Who is to say that this history is any less proper than the other?
I suppose I am.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough! I will not ask them to die.
40 billion people have already died.
And then Picard would have gone on to say, "I cannot justify readjusting history on the basis of saving lives in war. Shall I return to Sarajevo and stop the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand? Or go back to warn Station Salem 4? These scenes were trimmed back in the actual final edits of the show, but you can clearly see that in these past episodes of Next Generation, the whole catastrophic historical event of the attack on the Salem stations was a pretty significant event in the history of the Federation. And it definitely seems like Mike has got this event planned to show in Star Trek United as an event that would play out in probably one of the later seasons of the series if the show actually got made. So that's really exciting news. I think that's a fantastic little piece of canon information to throw into the show. I think it's going to get fans really excited for the concept. Let's face it, whenever we can see these canon events play out in new Star Trek episodes, that's stuff we really lap up. We love to see these things that we've heard about before but haven't seen. They did it to great effect in Star Wars Andor. The Gorman Massacre was something that we've heard about before in Star Wars but never seen, and they pulled that off really effectively in that show. Similarly with the location of Babel. We've heard about it in multiple episodes, we've journeyed to there but never got there. Seeing it will be great. Anything that connects this show back to canon references I think always works really, really well with the fans. And I think it's got the makings of an excellent and really interesting Star Trek series. We know it's worked with Picard. That show was very successful for 3 seasons, bringing Patrick Stewart back as a legacy character. And we know it's worked with a really good second season of Star Trek Prodigy, bringing Janeway back in a greater capacity for that whole season of the show. So it makes sense to me that after we know that the format works, it's in really good hands with Mike. I think that the 3rd and 4th seasons of Enterprise were the best seasons of that show, and a lot of the episodes that he wrote for those seasons of Enterprise were amongst the best of Enterprise. So I'm 100% behind this as a concept. I think it sounds amazing, and I can't wait for everybody to get behind it. But leave your thoughts in the comments section about what you think about showing this catastrophic Federation historical moment as part of the Star Trek United series with Scott Bakula returning as Jonathan Archer. Leave your thoughts in the comment section and we'll get chatting about that. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, be sure to do so. Click on that big subscribe button to stay current and up to date with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. And if you haven't checked out my merch, plenty of cool merch in the merch store, plenty of cool t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and caps and everything to check out, always at very reasonable prices, and it helps support the channel at the same time. I'll be back soon with the next video. See you guys soon.